featuring 1988 Olympic all-around finalist Lance Ringnold. Brandy Johnson finished best among the all-around competitors at the Olympic Games. She's one of America's best. The top gymnast from the Big Eight is Patrick Kirksey. He finished first in the all-around competition at the recently held Big Eight Championships. The winner of the 1989 mixed pairs event was Wendy Bruce. She teamed up with Li Ning of China for an unbeatable combination. And Conrad Borsinger, currently in 9th place on the national team, is from Stanford and looking to climb in the rankings. Meeting head-to-head today is Margaret Hewlett versus Carol Ulrich. On the men's side, it is Kyle Asano against Jorge Garcia. It's a sudden death form of competition. The winner advances while the loser goes home. ESPN, the Total Sports Network, and the United States Gymnastics Federation present the 1989 U.S. Challenge. Today it is show number 2. Margaret Hewlett against Carol Ulrich, and on the men's side, Kyle Asano against Jorge Garcia. Good evening and welcome inside the Denver Coliseum, where this is the second of several Friday nights of gymnastics here on ESPN. Hello everyone, I'm Leandra Riley, and we have 6 matchups in the first round for the women, 6 matchups for the first round in the men. It's a tournament style of competition. Let's take a look at the brackets and see what has happened so far. In our first show, Brandy Johnson was our winner. She will face the winner of today's show between Margaret Hewlett and Carol Ulrich. On the men's side, the winner was Lance Ringnold. He has survived to face either Kyle Asano or Jorge Garcia, depending on who wins today in our second telecast. And right now, let me introduce to you Olympic gold medalist Bart Connor. And Bart, we've had one show already. Brandy and Lance advanced. What did you think of the first show?
Well, I think the format is very interesting because the athletes, even though the favorites are Lance and Brandy, they're pretty nervous because they know if they make a mistake in the early rounds, they could be bounced right out of the competition.
All right, let's talk about the women. Margaret Hewlett and Carol Ulrich, 2 tough competitors going head-to-head.
This will be an interesting battle because Carol's the local girl, and I'm sure she'll be inspired being in front of the hometown crowd. Margaret is a big vaulter, and that's the first event. She'll need a good score there if she's going to win.
All right, if she does, it might be an uphill battle for Carol. Let's go over to the men's side. Kyle Asano against Jorge Garcia, 2 youngsters.
And both of these guys are on the USGF Senior Elite Developmental Team. They'll be members of the U.S. national team in the future, so I'll be interested to see if they can handle the pressure here at this big international meet.
Of course, what's around the corner is Lance Ringnold, because whoever survives here will face Lance in a later telecast show. We'll be back with this matchup, however. Stay with us here at the Denver Coliseum. And we are going to begin with men's gymnastics. We are following the Olympic rotation. You are looking at Kyle Asano. Again, he is matched up against Jorge Garcia. Floor exercise is the first rotation. Earlier, we had a chance to speak with Kyle Asano. We spoke with him about this U.S. challenge and how he feels about it. When you're standing there ready to start your floor exercise and the judge holds up the green flag, what's going through your mind for those few seconds while you're waiting for that green flag?
Mainly relaxing, not really thinking about the whole routine, just taking one, past one at a time, and just mainly relaxing, because that's the trouble I have. I can't relax. And he was very nervous during that interview. His toe was tapping and his fingers were fidgeting. So I think Kyle Asano is actually a little bit more relaxed on the floor than he is in the television situation.
Would you welcome Kyle Asano?
He is the youngest of 3 children. Was born in Redwood City, California. Currently lives in Sunnyvale.
He trains at the Stanford Gymnastics Club with Sadao Hamada, who's also the coach at Stanford University. Good, clean mount. That's called a full-in pike back. Good landing. Straddle jump, punch front, good combinations. Once again, there's the flared circles that we've seen many of the gymnasts perform. That's called a pancake.
Named for that famous gymnast Pancake, or because he looks like one?
The trick is certainly to get all the way flat, and it isn't all that easy to do. Round off, whip, whip. Nice little combination for a third tumbling pass. Keep in mind that the gymnasts have to cover all of the floor area, so generally what you see is 2 diagonal passes back and forth, and then 1 side pass, as we just saw, and then he'll cut back across the opposite diagonal, covering the rest of the area in 50 to 70 seconds with a clean tuck double back. Good routines for such a young man.
Kyle Asano, just 17 years of age, completing his floor exercise performance, and you saw the big sigh of relief that he gave to his coaches as he exited the podium.
He had a very good idea, and he mentioned in the interview that he's going to take 1 pass at a time. I think that's key, because you can't let an early mistake get you in trouble, so he just decided to focus on each element individually, and I think it was very successful for him. It's a good attitude to approach on the floor exercise. Round off here, back handspring, nice high tuck double back. That's a strong dismount for such a young man, and he did it very easily. Here's the third pass. Round off, whip, whip. Everybody's looking for something different, especially on that third pass, because the other 3 passes tend to be standardized, but he found a unique way of fulfilling the requirement of covering the rest of the area.
If there's any flaw that you could find in it as he receives a 9.3, it would have to be maybe some form breaks.
Yeah, there were some slight form breaks, and of course the judges are really keying on those because all these competitors are very strong. It's going to be the little things that make the difference here.
Again, his challenger is Jorge Garcia. He knows the score to beat is now 9.30. The way this U.S. challenge works, you must compete in the all-around. After 6 rotations, the gymnast with the highest cumulative score, that means all 6 apparatus figured into the total, will be the one who survives to compete in the next round of competition.
Jorge is originally from Puerto Rico, but he lives in Houston, and he did a nice mount there. It's a half in, 1 and 3 in the tucked position to a rollout, and then of course he comes back across the diagonal with a 1.5 twist punch front. And look at the flares there. Tremendous speed, great elevation above the floor. Up to pirouettes, to a handstand, and down to splits. That was an excellent combination. So far, that's the best part of his exercise.
At first, I was a little concerned going into the flares. I thought, uh-oh, he didn't get all the way down to the splits, but it was a setup for those flares.
Oh, you can't walk in that handstand. Although it is no longer a requirement, you don't need to show a press to a handstand. If you make bobbles like that in some basic elements, the judges are certainly going to downgrade the exercise because you can't give away points on the easy things. You have to hit those right because the difficult tumbling passes are where the chances of making mistakes are a little stronger. And a full punch front, not a really strong dismount. He needs a little more difficulty in his sport, but he's still very young. He's on the senior development team for the U.S. program, so he'll develop into being a little bit more of a powerful tumbler as the years go on.
He is just 18 years of age as we take another look at his performance.
Round off back handspring, little sloppy, but that's a half in, 1 and 3. You can see he rolls out, stands up with a half turn, and then he comes back across the diagonal. There's no question that this is a great part of his exercise. The tumbling wasn't really powerful, but this stuff is great, and this is world-class stuff. Flares with tremendous elevation, really good speed, and he cranks them right up to a pirouette handstand. Here's where he got in trouble, though. This is important to hold this right here. Straddle press to a handstand. You can't give away the easy points as he did there. I did that a lot when I was a young gymnast as well, though, so he'll improve a great deal.
So there's hope for Jorge because Bart outdrew it. You see his score, 9.15 right now, Kyle.